Well, hello.
Well, hello there.
I didn't see you there because my eyes were
My eyes
closed
were closed. I was communing with my spirit,
with my own personal spirit.
with my personal spirit. Welcome to Mind, Body, Spirit.
Mind, body, spirits,
I love that title. That's such a good title.
which is all, about connecting these aspects of ourself and then also like with the guidance of the spirits of the other world.
I am here with our resident medium, Amy Goldenberg.
Today, our topic is, I think, appropriately anxiety.
What are you feeling anxious?
Well, I have definitely struggled with anxiety for
Yeah.
a lot of my life. And I think, as a collective, even aside from our own personal worlds, what we're having to live in is definitely could produce some anxiety.
Do you think, speaking of anxiety, because I have a generalized anxiety disorder. I've had it as far as I know my entire life. We've never been able to like track back like an inciting incident. It's just kind of always been there. I wasn't diagnosed until I was about 28. When having untreated anxiety is there's a reason that it comes along with depression a lot of the time because it is so lonely. It can be so shameful to deal with that kind of anxiety all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But people our age, I just feel like we hear that a lot. Everyone has anxiety. And like it's different there's different types. There's the general anxiety that I feel like a lot of us are feeling all of the time. There's, an anxiety that's diagnosable. That's like, oh no, your body literally doesn't make the chemicals it's supposed to when it's supposed to. But when it comes to like the general anxiety that I feel like a lot of us experience, do you feel like that is a more modern phenomenon?
Yes.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, and it's there's a huge correlation between nutrition and gut health and anxiety. Do you know if you were a cesarean baby?
I was not.
Okay. Because that can be so you get your microbiome all over your body when you go through the birthing canal. So if you don't go through the birthing canal, you don't get all of that flora and probiotic stuff that's in
Interesting.
that fluid. So I'm a cesarean baby, so I've had like stomach problems my whole life for not just because of that, for other reasons as well, but that can be a contributing factor to having a dysregulated gut microbiome.
That checks out. My sister, who is 3 years younger than me, she was a C-section baby, and she has, I mean, the worst tummy problems I've ever seen. It doesn't matter what she eats, she gets a stomach ache. Yeah.
Yeah, which is if you're well, I'll talk about it.
Okay.
But first, I want to talk about the mind because a lot of people, the way they experience anxiety is through thoughts and racing thoughts and kind of an inability to shut the mind off or to
Yeah.
calm the self down where you're like in a disassociated state and you can't calm your mind down enough to get back in your body. So, one of the solutions that I have done myself and that I've learned about my mentor who owns the salon and like wellness center that I work at, she is a breathwork practitioner. So, I first kind of started doing it with her, but it's basically what is breathwork? It's intentional breathing patterns to create certain effects. And so there are some that can help you calm down your nervous system. And I thought we could try some of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the first one is alternate nostril breathing. So you take your thumb, you put it on one, and then the other finger is either your middle finger or your ring finger, whatever you want to do. But obviously you don't close both at the same time. But so you start by breathing in through one nostril and then closing that nostril and then breathing out through the other nostril. And then you repeat that again. And so you're kind of creating like almost like a ring of air going up through and down through. Around 5 minutes of that breathing, you have to fight yourself pretty hard to stay in an anxiety state.
I've only done it for like 5 breaths and it already feels good.
Yeah, so that one's nice because you can kind of slow yourself down.
Well, and also I feel like you said, you're almost creating this like ring of energy. And in other breath work that I've done, where it's like, you take a deep breath and imagine like a ball of light getting bigger, and then breathing out all your
Mm-hmm.
impurities, and then breathe in and your
Mm-hmm.
ball of light gets bigger and you breathe out all your impurities. And that visualization never worked for me, but I feel like a circular.
Yeah. And like true breath work is really without the mind.
Right.
It's honestly like kind of life changing. It can heal some deep trauma. And the cool thing about it is that it's fully self contained and self guided. So it's like fully empowering. Like there's nobody telling you what you should be thinking or feeling or anything like that. But it's nice to be guided if you can go with like
For
a
sure.
guide. But type of breath work that I've done where it's a sustained breath for about 30 minutes. You hold your mouth as wide as like 3 fingers
Mm-hmm.
and you breathe in and you don't pause because a lot of time, most of the time when we breathe in, we pause, and we breathe out. But with this,
Yeah.
it's called continuous breath. So it's just
I would imagine you would almost get high
yeah,
after 30 minutes. Euphoric.
it is. It can be euphoric. It really moves like deep trauma. It can be really helpful if you're like things that are repressed potentially or things that you don't necessarily want to visualize your way through. Like this can kind of move a lot of energy. It really brings you back
Yeah.
into your body and really quiets the mind. And that continuous breath, like even if you don't do it that way for 30 minutes, like that one for me is really helpful as well with anxiety. Just it makes you not be able to like stop and think. And because I am, a neurodivergent person
Mm-hmm.
and I already have a problem with breathing because I'm really sensitive and I hold my breath a lot without realizing it. And so with the continuous breath, even if I'm not doing that kind of breath and I'm trying to breathe, if I pause, I'll like pause for too long and
Yeah.
then be like, oh, okay, like, yeah. And it's not as therapeutic feeling. And so those two techniques I find to be really, really helpful when like you're having such bad anxiety that you can't do anything else. Like you can't meditate, you can't use your mind because your mind is like betraying you right now.
I mean, focusing on your breath just in general is such a great note for any type of meditating, because that's what happens to me. My anxiety manifests itself in like almost list making,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like in my head, I'm constantly going over who knows,
Yeah.
whatever's going on. I know last night Joe was saying goodnight, and I was like, good night. Tomorrow, depending on what time you get home from work, I could either make dinner before I record and you could heat it up, or I could make it and he was like, "Why don't we think about that tomorrow?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, sure."
Oh, that's so lovely. That's
Yeah.
that's awesome.
So that's the kind of stuff where it's like if I'm trying to meditate and it's like, maybe if you
Yeah.
shh, hush, go to sleep, take a nap.
Yeah, I have the ruminating thoughts issue sometimes. OCD runs in my family
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah.
it's not regulated. And a lot of people don't know that there are different kinds of OCD and it doesn't have to be external. A lot of
Hmm.
times it can be internal where you're obsessively thinking and repeating like a train of thought or we're not able to stop thinking about a particular thing. And so this I think is also helpful in managing things like that,
Definitely.
which are probably could be umbrellaed under anxiety related disorders.
Definitely.
So the next thing I have for the mind is something called the bone squeeze. I don't know if you knew this about me, but I'm a spiritual medium.
What?
And because of the experience of being constantly overwhelmed by my external environment, I am
Hmm.
disassociated a lot out of my body.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, I don't even know if I am.
Period.
Exactly, period. And so I learned this from a therapist that I was seeing for a long time. Their name is Stevie Lee, and their business is called Weaver and Rose Somatics, I believe. But somatics are basically the study and practice of the body and its relation to the mind, emotions, and environment. She taught me the bone squeeze because I couldn't get into my body one day. And so I was thinking that we could try this out as well.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
what it is like literally you just try to feel all the bones in your whole body and you kind of squeeze them and like feeling really the contours of your skull. And to do it really properly, you have to really move very slowly to feel everything.
That's true.
And part of my personal disassociation experience is like I'm always like running away from being in my body. So I'm like, can we finish this now? And so this really makes me have to like slow down. And also just for some reason for me, the idea that we're all just skeletons under here,
We're just meat sacks with skeletons
and
underneath.
like skeletons are just, I don't know,
Spooky.
universal and beautiful, and there's something about them that's like comforting to me. And so feeling my bones is like, I don't know. It's helpful, but I don't know if you like notice that any difference in yourself just like going over and feeling the body, but for me it definitely helps me come back into my space.
Well, I feel a real connection with, because now I'm like, just even just like your arm bones. Like
Yeah,
you
right?
feel a real connection with, oh, that's right. Because I do feel like sometimes I just feel like I'm a floating head
Yeah, me too.
or like a floating brain with a nervous system just floating around.
Yeah. I broke my hand a couple years ago
Ouch.
and I don't have health insurance. So I pay out of pocket for everything. But I broke my hand, and I couldn't really get anything for it. So
Right.
I had to deal with it myself. And I had to I used like a popsicle stick and tape and all this shit.
Braced it.
My hand healed itself, and feeling in my hands today, I was like, God, there's all these tiny bones. And like, I work with my hands. I do hair and I play piano and I make art and things with my hands, and it's miraculous. You know, your
Yeah.
body is really miraculous, and if you give it the right things, it can really heal itself. Which brings me to our next section.
Is it body?
It is bodies. So generally, what anxiety is can be related to an increased cortisol level. And cortisol is the stress hormone or the fight or flight hormone. So if you're in fight or flight mode, your cortisol gets high. However, cortisol also is the thing that wakes you up in the morning, and it has other functions besides just making you feel stressed out. It can make you
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
motivated as well.
You still want cortisol.
Exactly. It's really
You just
important.
don't want all the cortisol.
Exactly, exactly. And you don't want sustained cortisol because
Yeah.
if you have sustained cortisol, that wreaks havoc on the nervous system and on the functions of the body.
Well, I will say before I was treated, I would say between ages 17 and 28, the amount of times I would get sick a year. I mean, I would be sick probably twice a season. I would miss work so often. I was so sick. And I think it's that. I think it's just sustained. I just had sustained cortisol for 10 years of my
Mm-hmm.
life,
Yeah.
and my immune system was garbage.
Yeah. Yeah. It could definitely have, I mean, there's for sure a connection there.
Yeah.
Back to what we were talking about in the beginning, the gut microbiome. So we have
Yes.
the vagus nerve, which is a
Hmm.
nerve that goes from our brain down to our stomach. And they have found neurons at the end of that in the stomach, which are brain cells.
You are going to shit yourself. Lauren, actually, the episode that we are inserting this into,
Mm-hmm.
Lauren talks about that.
Perfect. Beautiful.
She was like, "Did you know that our stomach has a second brain?" And I was like, "What?"
That is why one of the reasons why gut health and the gut microbiome is so important, because the first signs of a degraded gut microbiome are anxiety and depression, which most Americans have. And
Yeah.
I'm just going to say our agricultural system for generic food
Mm-hmm.
and for specifically uh, the wheat crops, they have put glyphosate, which is a chemical that's a pesticide, on all of these things. And glyphosate degrades your gut microbiome. It also causes leaky gut syndrome, which can end up leading to autoimmune conditions where your body attacks itself. So that's why so many people are quote unquote allergic to gluten. It's not an allergy to gluten, it's an allergy to the poison that's on gluten, but our body almost can't differentiate between the two at this point. Like the wheat, it's almost like in it forever
Yeah.
here only in the
Yeah.
UK and in Europe. I can't eat gluten here. I can eat it there. I just want to talk about the gut health thing because it is such a huge factor. Also, 80% of the United States are magnesium deficient, and magnesium deficiency causes anxiety. That's the symptom of the deficiency. So, and body pain. So that's like, and that's a great supplement that's really easy to take. You can do like a drink mix. They make the Calm drink mix. And
Yes, I take that every night. I love it.
yeah, so you know that how it helps you feel relaxed. It
Mm-hmm.
does help your body calm down. I notice when I haven't taken magnesium in a while because I'm like, why do I feel like existential dread? When like obviously there's reasons, but I don't do doom scrolling and things like that. So I don't have like shit in my face.
Triggers.
Yeah, to be having existential dread for any other reason than a deficiency. But even if you are doom scrolling, I think it could be better if you take magnesium. There's that. And then I wanted to talk about some herbs that I
Yes.
love that are really helpful. And they all kind of do similar things. But the first one is Melissa officinalis, aka lemon balm,
Lemon balm.
from the Lamiaceae family, aka the mint family.
You'd think it'd be from the lemon family.
Right? No, it's from the mint family, and actually a few
Okay.
of these are from the mint family.
Interesting.
Yeah, and a lot of mint can be relaxing. So
Yeah.
it's good for your stomach, which is helpful for your mind. It's also a nervine, which means that it relaxes the nervous system. It's a hypotensive. That's something that lowers your blood pressure. So
Mm-hmm.
anxiety usually raises your blood pressure.
And would this be something for the lemon balm? Would you bathe in it, drink it?
You can do either a tea or a tincture.
Mm-hmm.
I made a tea out of all the herbs that I have on my list today, which there's 4.
Nice.
The next herb that I want to talk about is passion flower.
Okay.
Passion flower is great if you have issues with sleeping because it can make you very, very sleepy.
Hmm.
It's a sedative, but it's also a cerebral vasorelaxant. So what that means is if you have like tension headaches, it'll dilate, relax your veins around your head, basically. I find it to be pretty highly sedative. If I'm not having anxiety and I take a bunch of passion flower, I'm probably going to go to sleep. But if I'm in the middle of the
Mm-hmm.
day and I'm having a panic attack and I take a bunch of passion flower tincture, I'm not going to be sleepy. It's going to just
Yeah.
it's going to do exactly what I'm trying to get it to do.
I take Xanax for emergencies. And I've gotten to the point now where I rarely ever touch it. I
That's
almost never
awesome.
take it. But that's the thing with Xanax when people are like, "Oh, aren't you afraid to take it? You'll get sleepy." It's like, not if I'm having a panic attack. If I'm having a panic attack and I take a Xanax, I just go back to normal. If I'm not having a panic attack and I take a Xanax, I go to sleep.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So,
So herbs work the same way. And actually like all pharmaceuticals are derived from the isolated constituents found in plants. So they all come
mhm.
from the same place too, which is what you can tell people when they're like, do they really work? And you're like, I don't know, does your like fucking blood pressure medication work?
Yeah. Where do you think this stuff comes from? You think we made it up
Yeah, it came from the earth originally,
originally and then we manufactured it and were able to synthesize it?
and then make it kind of gnarly.
Yeah.
And then the next one I have is called skullcap, aka scutellaria, also in the mint family. Very similar. It's a nervine. It does the cerebral vasodilation, but it's also a trophorestorative for your nervous system. So what a trophorestorative is something that if you take it daily for an extended period of time, it's going to restore the system of the body. And that system is the
Oh.
nervous system. So if you have a chronic anxiety issue, skullcap is something that if you took a skullcap tea or a tincture in the evening every day for like 6 months, you're going to be repairing your nervous system as well as treating anxiety in the moment. So that's something that's really cool about skullcap.
Yeah, I've never heard of skullcap.
It's one of my favorites, honestly, because it's not as sedative as passion flower is,
Right.
but it really like just helps me feel
It
better.
helps with your nerves in your nervous system.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I pretty much spent my entire life in fight or flight until like the last 5 years almost. So,
Yeah, I can relate.
yeah, and it's really debilitating. I mean, what you said about feeling isolated, it's like when you get to the point where you can't pretend that you're
Hmm.
okay anymore, and then your body and nervous system start breaking down, and then it's really hard for people to understand because they don't see that side of me. And so they're like, "You seem fine." And I'm like, "I'm not
It's
fine."
like, well, I just cried in the bathroom for 2 hours, so who's fine?
Yeah. Or like, I'm not expressing it on my face, but I'm not okay on the inside.
Yeah, on the inside, there's a tornado.
Exactly. And so I think that it can be kind of like an invisible condition for a lot of people. And
Yeah.
so I just want to validate that experience because it's lonely and it can be painful, to have to try to try to feel like you have to explain and write like an essay about your condition, you know.
And when you said like you feel like it's kind of an invisible ailment, like it is even to you. I didn't know I had anxiety.
Well,
I
because
just
that's your
thought,
norm. When you're normal,
yeah,
that's your normal.
I just thought I don't want to be here anymore. Why do I find everything so much harder than everyone else does?
Yeah.
I don't understand why I can't function.
Yeah.
Why am I
Why are these
different?
dumbass people so much better at doing these like basic things than I can't do them, and I'm like, I'm pretty smart. The last herb that I have, which is really interesting. So cortisol is a hormone in the body, and
Okay.
your liver rules all your hormones. And if you don't have the proper nutritional constituents that you're eating, then your body doesn't have the ingredients that it needs to do the first and the second process of detoxifying with the liver.
Mm,
So the second process is when the liver breaks down the toxins that it collects into water soluble constituents and you pee it out. But if you don't eat enough of these like nutrient dense, a lot of it is like vegetable type, like stinky vegetable type stuff, then it can recycle your hormones through your body multiple times. So this herb is called St. John's wort.
yes, heard of that one.
Yes. And this one, it has a constituent called hypericin in it that's been isolated and synthesized and made into kind of like a natural antidepressant because
Oh,
it can help with like serotonin in some way. The way that I like to use St. John's wort is because it's like a liver flusher. Like it will flush your liver, especially if you take the tincture of the fresh flowers. God, it's such an awesome plant. It's so cool. It's all these cute little yellow flowers. And then when you tincture it fresh, they turn red. It's all bright ass red.
that's like alchemy.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's like considered an invasive plant. So some organization bred these particular beetles to eat it, specifically that plant, so that it could not be overgrowing everything. Basically, it just adapted to them. So now there's just a bunch of these beetles everywhere that are like, if you test the beetles themselves, they're just full of this hypericin constituent. So they're just like little,
They're little pills.
yeah, they're little pills.
They're little herbal
It
pills.
didn't work.
Oopsies. Well,
But it just helps flush your liver out. So it's like if you have really bad anxiety, you need to be treating your liver, because your liver is gonna be the thing that helps you get that hormone actually out of your body.
that's good to know.
Yeah. However,
Oh,
if you take life-saving medications, you should not use St. John's wort because it will render them ineffective.
wow, that's also good to know. If you rely on medication to live, skip this one. Go back to passion flower.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of brings us into the spirits section. All of this is to kind of bring us back into our body so we can be in a present state so that we can experience a spiritual feeling. I want to talk about essential oils. Essential oils are great, again, if you're having kind of debilitating anxiety and you don't have a lot of time even to wait for a tincture to become active.
Yeah.
You can smell an essential oil and it can pass the blood brain barrier, so it doesn't have to go through the body and through all of the liver and everything in order to be
Straight shot to
distributed.
the brain.
It goes straight to the brain, so it can actually like calm your nervous system down pretty quickly. And so scent is a great way to deal with that. The common ones are, lavender.
Lavender, I was going to say. Had to be on there.
Yeah. And then I like frankincense. Some people don't like the scent of lavender. It can be polarizing, I've found, which I'm surprised by.
Yeah, well, I also think that lavender is used in so many products throughout our lives that, like, you just might have a negative association with lavender that you don't even recognize, but you're just like, I don't like lavender.
Yeah, that's true.
Don't know why.
Something that is helpful to me if I'm anxious and I feel the energy around me is like doesn't feel good, is like I'll do a clearing on my space. And a lot of times I'll use smoke, but you don't have to use smoke. You can also use spray. And I'm going to do a little demonstration of making a clearing like room spray using essential oils.
Yeah, awesome.
So all you need is a spray bottle and then a little bit of witch hazel. It can be with or without alcohol. It doesn't really matter. So you do about a skosh.
A skosh.
15 mils ish of the witch hazel in the bottle. And what that does is it helps the water and the oil come together.
Yeah.
So they're not fully separated.
Yeah, because they separate really easily.
And then you can take whatever essential oils you want, do like 10 to 15 drops of essential oil. Essential oils are extremely potent.
Yes.
I once watched a demonstration of a hydrosol being made, which is essential oil is the byproduct of a hydrosol. And I watched like 4 pounds of lemon balm, fresh lemon balm, be distilled, and it produced less than 1 drop of essential oil.
Oh my gosh.
So you don't need a lot of it.
Yeah.
I'm just doing a few scents that I like, but trees, frankincense, and oak moss. And then you can just use filtered water or spring water and fill up the rest of the bottle. Kind of set whatever intention you have. For me, this is to clear the space, but also to help prevent any icky kind of energies around.
From lingering.
Because the way I experience like depression is it's a weird energy that I can feel that's different than my regular energy. And I feel like it's kind of almost like an entity or something like that.
Yeah.
And so this is a way for me to have that blood-brain barrier crossed and have the physiological effects of the scents of the essential oils help, but also the energetic effects of the plants helping to protect the space and my own personal intention.
And the lingering smell is a constant little reminder of whatever experience you just had too. So being able to catch whiffs of it later after you're done with your breath work or meditation or your moment of silence or your calm down session, you'll get whiffs of it. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Breathe.
Yeah, exactly. And like some people are either sensitive to smoke or they can't burn smoke for whatever reason. And so doing a clearing where you're using a spray and a feather or whatever, and you're saying whatever prayer you want to say or whatever words you want to say to state like what let's have only well and healthy energy remain in the space. I think it's just as effective
Yeah.
as using smoke. I just like to give multiple options for people because some people don't want to have all the smoke. And before we got on the call, I did a little meditation
Mm.
to kind of ask these spirits that I commune with, that I work with, have to share with the collective. And a lot of it is like comes from the earth. And that was really like the main message, was that nature is the answer to your problem. And it's like a lot of us are so detached from the earth and from the aliveness of the earth, and that we're part of that. And we're in these little, constructs that we live in of our society where we're like watching toddler men destroy people's lives and we can't do anything about it, or we have limited capabilities, like, and we have work and we have bills and we have all these things, and it's just this like weird cage that we have built around ourselves, which I'm not denying that it exists. Obviously it exists, but when you go out into nature and you sit there and you do some of these practices like breath work or even bone squeeze, and you're just sitting out with the trees and you get quiet and you get present and you listen, what really comes through for me is chill out. What are you guys
Yeah.
doing?
What are you doing?
Like we're all here together. We're all here for, a short period of time in comparison to the rest of the earth. And like,
Stop and smell the
yeah,
roses.
and there's more going on than our little society that we live in, our phone and our little social network that we live in our phone. And I think a lot of people are kind of urging themselves away from that stuff because it's not bringing joy to people's lives as it once was. And I think that can be a turn back to nature, because like when I'm like all up in my head and tripping out about whatever, and then I go for a walk and I hear the wind moving through the seed pods of a tree and I can hear them, and it's like music, and it's like, hello, there's other shit going on besides your little tiny shit in your head. Like calm down, it's going to be okay. Like the institutions we're afraid of falling have not been here for very long,
Yeah.
and we'll be just fine without them.
Yeah.
But
It's
we
very
but we have,
temporary.
it's like, and that's a simplification of, a more complex issue, obviously, but that's kind of the message that came through, is like just go into the woods. And if you have like an aversion to nature, I would, that sounds like a trauma of some type, and so I would encourage people to get curious about that kind of stuff, because some people really don't like being outside, and it's like, but why?
Yeah.
Is
Why
it
don't you like being
because
outside?
you have some particular allergy or something traumatic happened or whatever? Because like the earth loves us, and the earth is like our mom, and it just like wants us to like lay on it and cry and give it all of our pain and all of our anxiety, and so it can use it and compost it and make it into some new life. And like we can just go outside and have that experience pretty easily, even if you live in a city. Because like I just had that experience with the wind and the trees today when I was walking
And you were on a sidewalk in Denver.
next to
Yeah.
all the dog shit on the fucking ground.
That no one picks up
For real, dude.
because we live in a society that doesn't care about other people. So, but also you can connect to the earth in all the ways we've talked about in this episode, in this segment. The essential oils come from the earth, the
Mm-hmm.
herbs come from the earth, your
Yes.
breath comes from the earth.
Yes.
These are all ways to connect with the earth, but also get out in nature. And
If you
actually,
can, if you
if
can.
you can, once again, you connect to something we've talked about recent, like, I mean, we've been in engulfed with recently, because we've been talking a lot about dolphins and how we think they're sentient and how we think they're maybe more intelligent than people. And recently we talked about at the end of the episode that we are recording for right now, actually,
Oh my God, I love it.
we do a bibliomancy, and the message that came through was just like, man thinks that they're the most intelligent being on earth because we created McDonald's and war and New York City and Las Vegas, and all dolphins have ever done is just muck around in the water. But dolphins, on the other hand, think that they're the smartest thing on earth for the exact same reason,
Mm-hmm.
because they're not participating in McDonald's and war in Las Vegas and
Mm-hmm.
New York City, and they are just swimming in the ocean.
I love that.
And I think that's a great message for all of us.
I definitely received messaging from like the earth and like the like rocks and things that are so old. And there it's like today when I was meditating, it was like imagine like how much consciousness you can gain in one lifetime as a human being, and then multiply that by millions of years.
Yeah.
It's like just because mankind is doesn't have the consciousness to understand the consciousness of earth, we think it doesn't have any, when
Yeah.
in reality it is likely highly more conscious than we could ever comprehend.
Yeah.
And I can feel that. I can feel that when I go out in the woods and the freaking, it's like I'll turn around and you see a rock face and it looks like a bunch of ancestors and you're like, that's a bunch, well, hello. Like they're just here.
Well, hello.
And they're like, we wish you would participate more with us, you know? But it's kind of, I think it's, I mean, it's hard to unplug yourself from the matrix.
Sure is. That's going to be our mission until next time, until next month. Just see what happens when you spend more time out there,
Yeah. And
outside,
listening and
and
like
listening
try. And
and
even if you
touching.
can't hear anything and it's boring and it's quiet and you can't, and it's like, just stay longer then.
Stay longer.
You haven't been quiet for long enough.
I loved our very first episode of Mind, Body, Spirits. You can check this segment out on our YouTube channel every single month. The full version and the shortened version will be in the second episode released every month. So
Cute.
thank you so much. You're my favorite medium in the world.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get back to the show.